Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of MS Gamers Hut. And I'm your host, Ted Michael. Okay, which of those fighting games did you try last week? Iron Kill was one of my favorites to test for you guys. This week I'm reviewing dragon-themed games. A dragon is a legendary creature, typically scaled or fire-spewing, and with serpentine, reptile, or avian traits that features in myth of many cultures around the world. The first game I'm going to talk about is Dragon Slayer. It's not the most original game, but there's still plenty to like about Dragon Slayer. If imagination really is the serious form of flattery, the people who made Infinity Blade must be absolutely blushing by now. Publishers just can't wean themselves off of those tried and true game mechanics for mobile action games. So it should come to no surprise that Glue Mobile's Dragon Slayers continues in that vein. It does carve itself out a unique niche in terms of settings and visuals. But is that enough for iPhone or mobile gamers? The backstory for Dragon Slayer isn't that important. All you need to know is that your character, who looks a bit like a cross between a ninja and a mage, has a whole bunch of dragons to kill in order to stop corruption from spreading across the land. Dragons have a tendency to do that if left unchecked. You have to admire the conjones of a guy who's going to be facing down dragons all by himself, and you'll have even more respect for your character once you actually see those beasts. Glue came up with a number of different looks for dragons, from your standard fire breathers to lizards who get more down and dirty at ground level. The bosses at the end of each level are truly gigantic, and it's clear a lot of love went into designing the way they look and move. The second part is important because, again, this is gameplay you're likely encountered before. The dragon comes at you with their own unique attack patterns, forcing you to time your dodges or use one of your limited number of blocks to avoid damage. Avoiding the last attack in a sequence stuns the dragon for you to go to work on offense by swiping like mad. Hurling spells, since your character isn't a melee combatant, though you can land some lesser shots at any time, that plus the lack of counters actually makes fighting slightly less complex than in Infinity Blade. Dragon Slayer does bring some of its own ideas to the party. Certain correctly timed dodges active on screen ruin trace it quickly enough and you'll cast a stun spell that usually leaves the dragon incapacitated long enough for you in your full 8-shot combo, ending with a big finale burst of damage. Still, you really only have one offensive move most of the time, and a little varied would have been welcome. Besides learning the different attack patterns, A big chunk of the game's challenge comes from the fact that you've got to beat every dragon in a stage without healing. There's no penalty for death, but replaying a specific battle only gives you the health you had to start. This makes you concentrate a little more, even during fights, on your own to win, though it also provides plenty of justification for simply battling on a stage when you go into a boss battle with low health. Healing potions can help if you don't mind their expense. Like others similar titles, there are currency and experience rewards at the end of every successful battle, and lesser amounts even after losses. Your character's gauntlets can be upgraded in the store, and since some dragons are weak against specific elemental attacks, there's a good reason to have multiple sets. Armor, potions, and pets are also there for the purchasing, but everything is so pricey that it feels like a none too subtle attempt to convince you to shell out for some premium currency. Gaining offensive and defensive magic boosts by leveling up can also take a while. You can go back and grind through previous completed levels, but that can get old fast. Fortunately, the number of new stages you can unlock is impressive, and this is a game you can play for a while if it tickles your fancy. The next game I'm going to review is School of Dragons. With all the hand-wringing that goes on about schools to educate our kids, at least we don't have to worry about a proper place to send our winged reptilian friends. That's because Jumpstart's free-to-play, browser-based MMO, School of Dragon, has that covered, immersing players in the in how to train a dragon universe, while also dropping some knowledge on them at the same time. Just in case you haven't seen the well-regarded animated flick it's based on, School of Dragons is set on the island of Berk, a place where Vikings and dragons coexist, though not without some challenges, to be sure. Your character is a young Viking who gets the opportunity to raise and bond with a dragon, essentially growing up together. As virtual worlds go, Berk isn't a gigantic place, though it still has its fair share of interesting places to see. There's the Titler School, the village where the locals live, a beach, and some surrounding wilderness areas. The early gameplay will have your Viking undertaking various quests that mostly involve gathering or delivering items while you find out more about dragons and their histories with humans. Fans of the movie are in for a treat, as the main characters from the film are prominently involved as quest givers, accompanied by their trademark dragon. Hiccup, Astrid, Snotlout, and the gang have a fair amount of voice-acted dialogue, and they're instantly recognizable since the game's art style matches its source material to a T. Of course, none of that would be much fun without a dragon by your side, and you get to hatch one fairly early on. You're free to select any of the game's 9 types, and there's a personality test to give you a hand if the choice is too difficult. Be warned though, the decision is permanent, so unless you want to delete your avatar and start all over again, you should heed the words of the old guardian from Indiana Jones and the Lost Crusade, and choose wisely. School of Dragons places a lot of emphasis on the human-dragon bonding process, and part of it's similar to many virtual pet games as you manage your pet's levels of happiness and hunger. The former is a simple matter of petting or playing fetch with him or her ever so often. Feeding is a little bit more involved, as dragons prefer eating fish. Who knew? And you need to supply them. That means buying some or playing the fishing minigame, which is actually an entertaining way to kill a few minutes. You also get a farm, which serves as a place to customize and a production center for various helpful items. Not unlike a scaled-down version of Farmville, the idea is to plant and water crops and feed and groom animals, all of which will yield different products at regular intervals. Plants, animals, and decorative items are purchased with coins, while the harvesting process can be sped up with gems, the game's premium currency. Monthly memberships can be purchased to obtain free gems every month and a variety of other bonus and discounts. There's even more to do once your dragon grows a bit bigger. Something that requires you to chunk into the lava to finalize. Seriously, anyway, you can actually use your newly grown companion as a mount to fly around, breathe fire, and do more stereotypical dragony things. Hiccup's Flight Club opens up the option for dragons racing, and there's the Fireball Frenzy to master fire breathing, both of which are a bit more action-oriented and worth plowing through the more sedate early stages of the game. Except for some brief loading screens when traveling between certain areas, the game runs smoothly. Jumpstart is known mostly for educational titles, and there's a strong learning theme that runs through the whole game. Parents will probably be happy to know that their child would probably get something useful besides entertainment out of playing School of Dragons. Occasionally, the teaching can get a little heavy-handed, like the way the alchemist emphasizes the scientific method to solve certain quests. More often, though, the educational aspect are woven in with the story and gameplay elements in such a seamless fashion that you don't even notice they're there. It's like stealth learning. It's worth noting that reading is pretty much a must, so without assistance, the game might be too hard for younger elementary school-age kids. So many games based on movies are low quality cash grabs that it's very possible even people who are fans of the movie might overlook School of Dragons. They might regret that, since it has both brains and heart wrapped in a non-violent package that will appeal to lots of different people. Plus, it's making sure the dragons grow up, learn, and that's important too. The next game I'm going to review is called Dragon's World. Dragon's World joins the ranks of other dragon breeding games with an impressive experience that has you taking tiny baby dragons and raising them into beautiful creatures that they are. Along the way, you'll get to breed them to create unique combinations and train them up for Pokemon-style battle in tournaments against other players. There is plenty of opportunity to let your creativity run wild in Dragon's World, with the ability to decorate 3D environments that with all sorts of habitats to house and grow your dragons. Combining this customization with the huge number of dragon species for you to discover, it's the sort of game that ensures you always have something to do and helps take the sting off the waiting periods that plague this game's genre. Starting out, you'll have your own flying island flying island with a blank slate, just waiting to be transformed by you in any way that you desire. Quests will help you guide your early progress by encouraging you to build particular starting buildings and dragon habitats, but as you advance, you'll unlock more and more freedom. With buildings, habitats, decorations, and extra islands to unlock, you'll be playing Dragon's World for the long haul. The tournament features of the game in particular is where much of the longevity comes from. As you combine dragons from the 8 elements to create a dream team. This depth gives the battles a Pokemon-like feel, as you choose your battles, attacks, and balance your dragon's elements for success against thousands of other players. Battles are more than just the highest level dragons, though, and getting lucky with elemental matchups with training gives you the option to bestow different perks onto your dragon every 3 levels that can make them more powerful with careful selections. Create your dream dragon team and raise the tournament ranks while you create the perfect floating dragon island with Dragon's World. Easily one of the best games in this space. The next game I'm going to review is Dragons and Titans. When you play a game with a title like Dragons and Titans, you seek fire, brimstone, and battles of epic proportions that rattle the very foundations of Earth. The reality of the latest addition to the ever-expanding MOBA genre, however, in a bland and clumsy game that relies on its theme as a crutch to make up for its gameplay, having no longevity of its own. Dragons and Titans may feature the juggernaut of fantasy lore, but the game itself is too fragile to make so much of a whimper. Dragons and Titans is yet another free-to-play game, following in the footsteps of the likes of Defense of the Ancients 2 and Leagues of Legends. You select a dragon and a legendary weapon, and then join a team with the focus of annihilating the equally various opposing team. As has become a staple of the genre, you may do so in any of the 3 game variants, the central of which has you focusing on freeing your team's Titan by destroying the enemy's Titan cage in the center of the base. The Titan cage is shielded, however, and destroying the various structures surrounding the enemy base serves to take a chunk out of the enemy's shields or speed up the shield's natural decay. The other options are a domination variant, which requires your team to destroy the enemy's Titan cage, and the familiar all random, all mid, offering for a more relaxed experience. Matches are much shorter than in most similar games, clocking in around 20 minutes for a long game, compared to the daunting hour-long matches that often appear in League of Legends. The dragons in Dragons and Titans rely on special cone-based skill focus in the directions the dragons is facing. Such skills pertain to the element the dragons represents, whether it be poison, fire, light, sand, mist, or so forth, that the basic attacks is tied to the direction you face and is cause of untold frustration. Once you use up your other spells and abilities or run out of mana, you and your opponent have nothing but basic attacks left, and battles play out in one of 3 equally exasperating ways. You chasing down someone who's too low to stay and fight and just flees in a zigzag pattern to reduce your damage. You chasing an enemy fighter who is waiting on cooldowns and simply flies backwards, or you and an enemy dragon rider attempt to fly directly at one another, only to end up chasing each other's tails in a circle. The result's chaos is never fun. Basic attack complaints aside, dragons are inherently equipped with one other ability to give them their unique identities. The paper dragon has a bonus health shield to bolster its literally paper-thin defenses. The bone dragon gains some close-range combat abilities, and the magma dragon spends chunks of flaming rock flying at foes. These abilities and dragon's appearance and base stats are the only aspects of the game lending identity to the different selectable characters, apart from the game's legendary weapon system. While teams are limited to one of each type of dragons per team, they are also limited to one of each type of legendary weapon, Legendary weapons grant you 2 additional abilities, and any weapon can be attached to any dragon, so you can customize half of a dragon skill set on a game-to-game base. This offers some interesting customization options, such as the ability to turn a backline poker into a equally devastating threat in melee range, or to simply increase your firepower from afar. But it also gains the identity to each class of dragon and makes them all bleed in one. The game offers a single-player campaign for those who aren't interested in or who want to break from playing against other players. The campaign consists of 3 acts, 2 of which you must pay for to unlock, and it's merely a gauntlet of kill this, kill those, collect these, and kill that, with unforgettable bits of dialogue to link each bit together. There are 3 different levels, and the game offers an additional star for beating the level with an additional parameter, such as increasing within a certain time or with certain dragons. Much like Leagues of Legends, Dragons and Titans features a rune system for customizing your stats for a battle of collecting and purchasing runes to power up your dragon. Unlike in Leagues of Legends, the runes can be purchased with real money, leading to a red flag for those opposed to pay for power mechanics in a game. Further, in this insidious vein is the ability to forge your legendary weapons to reduce mana costs or cooldowns, or to increase their damage. To forge, you expend forge materials and wait 4 hours, or use an ingot to finish the forging instantly. Once again, ingots can be purchased with real money, so players who pay can power their characters more quickly. Those who simply attempt to acquire them by grinding, you can make pretty substantial progress on your weapons foraging for as little as $4, with those 1% boosts all adding up to a noticeable decrease in mana consumption. And again, I stress that mana goes away fast in this game. You want mana. You want things to not cost a lot of mana. You want a forge that weapons you're using. One of the few areas where Dragons and Titans succeeds and others have failed is in its method of migrating champion select arguments over who gets to play which champion, because prior to queuing, you can pre-select your dragon or legendary weapon. It comes with a warning that you will increase the queue's time by running into anyone else. Pre-selecting your dragon or titan prevents you from being matched, but in many experiences, the queue time isn't noticeably increased. I was guaranteed to get the weapon I wanted every game, which meant more to me than what dragons I selected. The mechanics is a brave one, especially given the meager player base, but it succeeds in its purpose. It's a shame that the game featuring colossal lizards would look and sound so drab. Dragons' fire-breathe sounds are nigh inextinguishable from the sound of static when your TV cables goes out. The only graphics options available to adjust our resolution, full screen mode, vertical sync, and a single slider allowing you to choose between fast or pretty graphics. The best I could reckon the slider did was adjust the brightness from morning drive road glare to moderate canneling increase. You may wish to wear sunglasses when playing the game, or turn down your monitor's brightness and contrast. Dragons and Titans is mere show of other richer MOBAs, and while its significantly shorter average game time may give it some initial feature appeal, the appeal comes at the cost of almost any enjoyment of time invested. Dragons and Titans could have been a gateway game to the genre, but weighed against the game's counterparts, neither Dragon nor Titan can tip the scales in its favor. The next game I'm going to review is War Dragons. War would still be hellish, awful thing if opposing nations commanded dragons instead of tanks and guns, but let's be honest, dragon battles would be a pretty awesome spectacle to behold. War Dragons from Pocket Gems gives us a taste of what it'd be like to unleash giant flying lizards on whatever poor ground-pounding schmucks are fated to scurry under their shadows. You breed dragons, raise them up to be perfect war machines, and attack other players' bases. The game looks stunning and successfully blends genres to produce an experience that isn't necessarily deep, but it's enjoyable nevertheless. Dragon rearing is a major part of War Dragons. Think Dragon Veil, but with dragons that are admittedly less cuddly looking. Every warrior emerges from the shell fully formed. There are no wyverlings or whelps in the savage world of War Dragons. Once you work through a quick single-player campaign as part of a tutorial, you launch attacks on other players' islands. Said islands are protected by archers, cannons, and other means of defense. You get a dragon's eye view of the action as you rain down fire, lightning, and all kinds of special attacks. If you demolish your opponent's defenses, you're rewarded with food for your dragon, experience points, and other goodies. Of course, as you attack, so must you defend. Other dragon warriors, particularly the ones you wrecked, will come for you. If you happen to be playing when they come a-knockin', you can personally oversee your cannons and archers. Otherwise, they're activated automatically. The battle portion of War Dragons apes Clash of Clans a bit. It's more simplistic than what you might be used to from most battle strategy games that can be seen as a blessing or a curse. Your dragon soars over the battlefield automatically, so there's a little strategy involved in winning a fight. Your beast is either strong enough to survive or he isn't. In other words, most battles come down to peppering death down on enemy islands before you get shot down, and admittedly, that's not bad if you just want to play a game without wrecking stuff. To be honest, dragon fanatics will enjoy fighting with War Dragons, but they'll really latch onto the dragon breeding aspect of the game. There are some pretty imaginative designs amongst the brood, and it's a ton of fun to just watch them soar around your camp and do their thing. Your dragons are more reasonable for heavy-duty projects like cleaning away fog and trees, and they go do the former by skipping across the mist over and over. It's pretty cool. The War Dragon can use more of a story and a meatier single-player campaign. Its battles are also a bit repetitive and lacking depth. That said, if rounding up a bunch of awesome-looking dragons for some wanton property destruction sounds like an idea of a Friday night well spent, War Dragons has a few steeds that you may want to test drive. This brings us to the end of another episode of MS Gamers Hut. As usual, I would like to thank MS&Me Radio for giving me the opportunity to share my passion for games, and to my listeners, because without you, there would be no MS Gamers Hut. Next week, I will be reviewing some holiday games to help de-stress. Goodbye, and keep gaming.